is like glitter, Susan, a listener, wrote. You never get it all. Even long after the event, you still find it tucked in the corners. I thought that that was a perfect analogy for glitter and card making and all the things that we do.
Read it again.
Grief is like glitter. You never get it all. Even long after the event, you still find it tucked in the corners.
Yep, that's good.
In today's episode, we are talking about grief. Not as something to fix or rush through, but as just something that's deeply human and deeply spiritual. We did an episode a short time ago about Tim's loss of reading with his stroke, and we got so many comments, and this is where this comes from. Just such a shared experience that we do. And we talked about how gratitude and faith helped walk through the valley. What followed was a flood of stories of raw experiences from people. And so we've just picked some of those to just kind of talk about today. And these stories remind us that we're never alone.
I have to comment on that.
Yes, grief is like glitter. You never get it all. That's so powerful. Even long after the event, you still find it tucked in the corners.
We may have mentioned this, but we got married on my parents' 30th wedding anniversary. We were so excited to share anniversaries together. We got to share two because my dad died 26 days after his 55th birthday. And it was like, you've got to be kidding. I just turned 75 and realizing that I got an extra 20 years on him, I re-grieved my dad's death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is powerful. So, first a few stories are talking about Tim's story and the impact. Cindy wrote, Tim, I truly appreciate you sharing your experience. We grieve because we love what was lost. Grief is love. People need to know it's all right and acceptable to share their stories and their grief. I've always felt honored to sit and just be with someone because even in silence, there is a healing spirit. Blessings as you continue on your journey. That just really hit me. I sat bedside to your mom for a month before she died, and it was such a holy experience. I sat with my mom for the 2 weeks, and there is something about just, that is an honor to just sit there and be present, to be receiving that.
I remember with Margaret especially,
That's his mom.
Yeah. And I came down a few times while you were there, but we would talk about how you can just feel she's going through memories. Mm-hmm. She's losing her conscious mind, but before she's gonna pass, she's passing through her subconscious mind in a way that's like dreaming, but also remembering. And I feel I remember the impression that left on me to just kind of witness her go through her Rolodex of life experiences.
I think to reminisce has a Latin root that's real significant, and I can't remember what it is, but look up reminisce and see what it's connected to in its core.
We'll make a note of that. Kelly had also shared that she could also tell with grief and gratitude also in what you've been through with your sister. Tim's sister, who used to work with me in my business too. We did a lot of videos together, and she suffered a major stroke and is now a young person in a nursing home. And I miss her every day because and every time something's happening in California, I want to pick up the phone and talk to her about it. And that is an ongoing grief and loss of losing what was there. So all of these things that we all experience just kind of ebb and flow through our life, and they hit you at times. It's a
and I've actually come very close to the age that she had her stroke. It was just a few days before her 76th birthday, and mine will be in June.
Tom Lee says, life can change so fast, but we can still manage to be thankful. It can be character changing and adjusting experiences to help us try to find the best in things. So just something to aim for. And Patty said, thank you, Tim, for sharing your story. And the fact you didn't let it. Thank you for inspiring us to the same. Yes, you might have to go down the stairs a little slower, but let's be thankful we can still go down those stairs. I thought, oh, that's another good way of looking at it. I remember your mother at the end. What was it they told her in therapy? Because she was having trouble with stairs. And she always had to say, what was it? Step up to heaven, step down to hell. I don't know what it was, but she had this thing that your mom would recite as she went, as she managed the stairs. So it just made me think of that, how you can find a little comedy and things. But it is so true, you know, so we can do less of something, but to still appreciate what you can do.
I feel like the 40-year-old, 40-something point of view is a lot of like grieving the end of an era in your kids. Like, last summer marked the end of like us doing rec baseball and me being one of his coaches. And like Jamie and I are already grieving that. Like, we have more baseball to come, but that time of our life,
your role has changed.
Your
role,
and that chapter is over.
He's a teenager
and
now.
we want him to grow up, but we also
Right.
grieve,
but it's
leaving
bittersweet.
behind.
It is both things together.
Hank, when you leave the teen years, what do you become? What's the next year after the teens?
An adult.
And what number is that?
18.
No, that's
Still a teen.
Ooh,
19.
you think about the teen.
Still a teen.
Ooh, wait till
20.
you're 20. Oh. Nah, they consider we
Hank is still
consider
working on his
adulthood 18,
counting.
but
I would say 18.
he's being nitpicky here.
Well, legally,
Yeah, so legally 18 is an adult.
Laura said she loved the very raw and real story. Says we can feel the love you have for each other. You read to him, precious, so deep. I love how deeply Tim thinks. I had to put that on for Tim because, but he appreciates that because he does.
do.
That's what
I
he
do.
likes to do.
Deep and wide.
Karen said, and this was just very sweet too, thank you for being real about real things in life. I wish more people could see this than ever will. God bless all of you. I love that you feel that way. And that's just my little plug. We love when you guys share what we do. I said our purpose in doing this is just to share stories. Ours, yours, everyone's. Life is full of little meaningful stories. And this doesn't have a name, but it says, thanks for sharing the story of love and resilience. Through your channel, you make an impact and a difference in many people's lives. So I had asked, have you ever experienced a season of grief where gratitude helped you navigate the pain? What moments or small joys helped you find light in the darkness? So these are some comments. Linda says, my kids, memories of wonderful times and knowledge of my hubby would want, expect, and guide me through the rough times because of the love we shared. Still hard, but that keeps me going. And I think these things are powerful because look at your own life and think of, in the dark times, what helps keep you going? And things might come to mind that surprise you. It might be people. It might be your faith. It might be memories. It might be something now, but I thought that's love. Gay says, the love and support from family and friends walking beside me. Bunny says, I truly enjoyed this episode. My grief over losing my husband is overwhelming. Thank you for sharing with us. And I feel the power of that statement.
I think that's a common theme with people that follow us. The loss of a spouse.
Yeah. Well, it also is for our age and for everyone in different things. I think the older you get, the more common it is because you're losing also your peers. When you're younger, you tend to be losing older people. Not always, and that's really hard. But as we get older, you also start losing your peers. And if you lose a child younger than you, that is... I remember when your dad died and we had to call his dad, and he just kept saying, no, why wasn't it me? Why wasn't it me? He couldn't accept it. And even you, like when we called, say, you mean grandpa died? No, I mean your dad died. And, it's the wrong order. So, and many of you I know have lost a child, and a child of any age.
Part of the backstory there is grandpa was actually in the hospital, and he had some serious stuff going on with him. So there's, for all intents and purposes, we really thought that it was Grandpa Leslie.
And how hard it was on him. I just will never forget that. And even after that visiting, I just, we would trade places. We would do anything for our kids. And it doesn't matter how old. And Kathy said, love your sharing this. I have no words. This means so much to me. And Kathy said, during some extremely difficult days, I would see in my mind's eye me climbing the steps to my Heavenly Father sitting on the throne, and me as his child climbing up in his lap where he'd just hold me. My difficulty didn't just go away, but he was with me in it. Being a very visual person myself, I love that comment and just seeing that in the mind's eye. And I always talk about, for me, which is also a biblical reference, I always think of being in the eye of the storm. How if you can be in that eye of the storm, things are still, and you can be there, God can be with you, and while there's chaos and everything going everywhere around and kind of waiting for that still. I just think these are beautiful ways of expressing these common things that we go through. We don't even know what to say because these words say it all. You know, I mean, it really is. Vicky wrote about how 2022 was the worst year for her family because her older brother was in a jet ski accident. She went on and on and on, and all the therapies, all the things that went wrong, and how hard he's worked, and now he's back working. And she just said, he is my example of what we can do even in adversity. So even through the hard times, when you watch somebody, and I think a lot of us can think of somebody in our lives that has exemplified that. You know, I can't imagine being able to be like that, but people do that, have such a powerful example.
And tell me if I'm interrupting too much, but the movie that we saw about, it was actually kind of a documentary about Superman.
Chris Reeves?
Reeves,
Oh,
yeah.
it was powerful. If you have a chance to see that, that was so powerful. Yes. And so we had talked a lot about that. I think that, yes.
Between his wife and his courage and other family members, and it was really good.
Someone else says, I agree, Tim, that spirituality helps give us focus. I grew up with a mom who was blind, and she taught us not to let anything stop who you want to be. And this is a lighthearted comment. I thought we could put this up. I'd like to put this on a sign for our house. Anne says, live each day with gratitude as Tim cooks and Karen paper crafts. And
Get it in the
speaking
stenciled,
pictures,
like,
yes,
yeah.
and I thought that is
I
so
like
true
that.
because we often talk about
That is.
at this stage of life how fortunate we are to have each other, and that's what I'm doing. I'm working on my business, and we have our own separate spheres, and it describes our daily life. And I just thought that was just absolutely
And
really
now-
cool.
Now that it's an official slogan, I'll never be able to change it.
So that kind of captured our life. So thank you, Anne. And then these are also some other final words. This person, yes, some of you have just names on Facebook that like Papercraft or something, and that, so I don't have a name to go with it, but this meant a lot to me. She says, these talks are my favorite part of your channel. I'm a card maker too, but I enjoy the heart-to-heart conversations that make me think. Thanks so much. Karen says, I shared that one. Let's see. Helen says, thank you for sharing your story, how precious your insights of life are in an honest and heartfelt way. I'm sure your story will continue to move my thinking about my own aging, loss, grief, and spirituality as I approach my 75th birthday in a year. Thank you for your openness, Tim. I appreciate this heartfelt community. As we end this episode, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories and your hearts with us. Grief is something we will all feel at some point, and it can be hard. But even in the middle of sadness, there can be the little moments that help, that kind word, that thoughtful gesture, that person that comes and sits with us. So we hope our stories remind you that you are not alone. There's power in sharing, comfort in being together, and hope in finding small things to be thankful for, even when life is hard. And a card that made a difference. This is from Brenda. My son passed away 3 years ago. When he was on hospice, I would sit beside him and make the memorial cards and thank you cards I knew I would have to send. The fact we did it together gave me great comfort. He was so proud of them. Now I make them whenever I feel sadness creeping in, and I donate them to the VA and other charities to share the love. I am so thankful for that time we had.